The late afternoon sun was starting to sink, casting a golden glow across the neighborhood. Everything looked calm, but behind that calm exterior, frustration had been brewing for weeks. The HOA board had grown impatient with one homeowner who simply refused to bow to their constant demands. His property was larger than most, his gate taller, and his attitude sharper than the board had ever dealt with. To them, it wasn't just about enforcing rules anymore, it was about proving a point. That's why they decided to send in their so-called HOA cops. These weren't real officers, of course, but two middle-aged board members who fancied themselves as lawmen. They showed up in matching blue shirts with fake badges clipped to their belts, clipboards in hand, and sunglasses they thought made them look intimidating. To the casual eye, they might have passed for rent-a-cops, but anyone with half a brain could tell they were playing dress-up. Still, they strutted up to the gate as though they were about to take down a dangerous fugitive instead of dealing with an irritated homeowner who just wanted to be left alone. The taller of the two banged on the metal gate with his fist, shouting for the owner to come out. His partner paced back and forth, muttering about compliance violations and unapproved structures as though speaking into an invisible microphone. When no one answered, they grew more confident, convinced their target was hiding inside out of fear. "He thinks he can ignore us," the taller one sneered. "But today, we're going to make him listen." The property was quiet, unnervingly so. The air carried the faint smell of hay and animals, but nothing stirred behind the tall gate. The men exchanged glances, puffing up their chests like they were heroes about to bring order to the wild frontier. They ignored the way the neighborhood children had stopped playing to watch, their wide eyes peeking from behind parked cars. They ignored the curtain twitching from a window across the street, where someone was already recording. Instead, they leaned into their roles, calling out violations in loud, officious tones, making sure everyone could hear. To them, this was a performance, a chance to show their authority. What they didn't realize was that the homeowner wasn't the only one listening from behind that gate. Something far larger, far stronger, and far less patient was standing just out of sight waiting for the moment the intruders would make their mistake. The pounding on the gate grew louder and more impatient. The two self-styled HOA enforcers were starting to lose patience. They had expected the homeowner to come rushing out and protest, giving them the confrontation they so badly craved, but instead they were met with silence. That silence irritated them, made them feel small, and so they convinced themselves they had the right to escalate. One muttered about obstruction and non-compliance as though repeating those words gave them power. The other nodded grimly and said, "If he won't come out, we'll go in." The taller man set his clipboard aside, rolling up his sleeves as if preparing for a fist fight with the gate itself. He shoved against the iron frame, testing its strength. The hinges groaned, but the structure held. That only emboldened him. "This isn't just a gate, it's defiance," he said with a dramatic flair that even his partner thought was over the top. "And defiance gets consequences." With a grunt, he planted his shoulder against the bars and pushed hard. The sound of straining metal echoed down the quiet street. His partner joined in, both men straining together until the old hinges gave way with a sharp, metallic snap. The gate swung inward, crashing against the gravel driveway with a hollow clang that made even the children watching from a distance flinch. The fake cops straightened themselves quickly, brushing the dust from their shirts and pretending their forced entry was nothing more than official procedure. They stepped through the broken threshold like conquerors, though in truth their hearts were pounding with a mix of adrenaline and nerves. The moment they entered, the air felt heavier, different. The smell of hay was stronger now, mixed with something more earthy, almost primal. The taller man wrinkled his nose but pressed forward, clipboard tucked under his arm once again as he shouted, You are in violation of multiple HOA codes, and we are here to enforce compliance." His voice carried bravado, but there was a nervous edge to it that neither of them wanted to admit. Behind them, the broken gate swayed back and forth, its hinges squealing, a symbolic reminder that they had crossed a line they couldn't easily step back from. Neighbors whispered among themselves, some with their phones raised, capturing every second. The two intruders ignored the watching eyes, convincing themselves that they had won. They didn't notice the silence growing heavier, the way the air itself seemed to thrum, as though something massive was aware of their intrusion and preparing to respond. The property stretched wide and quiet, its open space deceptively calm. The men strutted a few steps inside, trying to look official, but their boots crunched loudly on the gravel, the sound betraying their nerves. They kept calling out, shouting the same phrases about rules, bylaws, and violations, but their words seemed to disappear into the stillness. The silence was no accident. Something was listening. A low, guttural sound broke that silence. At first it was subtle, like the distant rumble of thunder. The taller man froze mid-sentence, his voice caught in his throat. The other frowned, glancing around as though expecting a dog to come bounding out from behind a shed. But this was no dog. The rumble came again, deeper this time, and it carried a vibration that seemed to tremble in their very bones. From behind the large wooden barn, a shadow moved. It wasn't quick, but it was purposeful. Heavy stomps shook the ground, each step deliberate and weighty. Then they saw it. A massive bull emerged into the open, its black coat glistening under the last rays of sun, its broad horns catching the light in a way that made them look like sharpened steel. The animal's eyes fixed on the intruders, dark and unblinking, filled with the kind of focus that only comes from territorial instinct. The shorter man took a step back instinctively, his bravado draining away. That's just livestock," he stammered, though his voice cracked in the middle. The taller one tried to steady himself, puffing out his chest, but even he couldn't ignore the sheer power standing before them. The bull snorted, a hot burst of air shooting from its nostrils, kicking up dust from the ground. Then it lowered its head ever so slightly, one hoof pawing at the dirt. The tension in the air was unbearable. The intruders had wanted attention, but now they had it, and it was nothing like they had imagined. The bull took a slow, measured step forward, then another, each one making the fake cop's confidence shrink further. The ground felt alive beneath their feet, every stomp rattling their nerves. By now, neighbors had abandoned their subtle glances. Phones were raised high, capturing the sight of two grown men standing face to face with an animal that clearly had no intention of letting them leave easily. The bull's breath came louder now, its body tense, muscles coiled like a spring. The message was clear. The gate was his barrier, his territory, and they had just broken it. Now they would face the consequences. The bull's stance shifted from patience to decision in an instant. With a violent snort, it lunged forward, the sound of its hooves pounding against the dirt like drums of war. The two HOA imposters screamed in unison, their clipboards flying from their hands as they turned to flee. Dust swirled around them, kicked up by the furious charge. Papers scattered across the driveway, rules and regulations fluttering like useless leaves in the wind. The taller man, who had been so bold only moments ago, tripped over his own feet as he scrambled toward the broken gate. His partner didn't fare much better. His sunglasses flew off as he bolted, his chest heaving in raw panic. Behind them, the bull thundered forward, lowering its head and driving them faster with every step. It didn't need to make contact. The threat alone was enough to strip away their false sense of authority. The scene had become a spectacle. Neighbors who had once peeked from windows were now openly gathered on porches and sidewalks, phones raised high to capture every second. Some gasped in shock, Others laughed outright at the absurdity of two wannabe enforcers being chased down by a furious animal defending its ground. Every second was more chaotic than the last. One man screamed about calling for backup while the other shouted, "Retreat." As if either word could restore their dignity, the bull drove them all the way back through the gate they had broken, sending it swinging wildly on its damaged hinges. The men nearly collided with each other in their rush to escape, their attempt at a dramatic entrance now reduced to a clumsy, humiliating retreat. The taller one dropped to his knees outside the property line, gasping for breath, while his partner ran so far down the street he nearly bowled over a startled jogger. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the chaos ended. The bull stopped just inside the gate, standing tall, sides heaving, nostrils flaring. It didn't need to chase them further, it had made its point. The neighborhood was its witness, and justice had been served in the most unexpected way possible. From the porch of the house, the homeowner finally appeared, calm and collected, leaning against the railing with a faint smile. He didn't shout, didn't gloat, didn't need to. The sight alone was enough. His silence said everything. You break into my land, you deal with my bull. And for the first time in